poor wheelchair girl told the billionaire, "Please don't adopt me. Adopt my mom instead." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin today's story. It was a cold, overcast afternoon in the heart of the city. Lily, a young girl in a wheelchair, rolled down the crowded streets, the wheels of her chair clicking rhythmically against the pavement. She was bundled up in an oversized coat, but the cold still seemed to seep through. Her eyes were downcast, focused on the path ahead, as she navigated the busy sidewalk. She wasn't used to the cold. She wasn't used to the stairs either. But that day, she had more pressing matters. Her mother, who had been battling illness for months, was in desperate need of medical treatment. Money was running out. The bills were piling up, and there was no one to help. As Lily wheeled herself past a large, well-kept park, she noticed a man walking in her direction. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his posture confident, his steps purposeful. He was the kind of man who didn't belong in this part of town. He was the kind of man Lily would never have a reason to speak to. She couldn't even imagine what someone like him would be doing here. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. As she made her way down the path, she noticed the man had stopped in front of a street vendor. He glanced her way, and for a moment, their eyes met. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't used to people looking at her, not like this. She quickly looked away, pushing her chair past him, but before she could pass by completely, she heard him speak. "Hey, are you okay?" The words were kind, but there was something else in his voice, concern. She stopped, unsure how to respond. "I'm fine. Thank you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The man tilted his head, studying her. For a moment, he wasn't convinced. "You sure? You seem like you're in a hurry. Are you on your way somewhere?" Lily hesitated, glancing down at the ground. Her mother's illness was a secret she hadn't shared with anyone, not even strangers. She didn't want to burden anyone with her problems. But the man's presence was disarming, and something inside her made her answer, "I'm just trying to get to the hospital for my mom." The man's face softened. "Your mom?" he asked. Lily nodded, unsure why she was telling him this. "She's sick, and we don't have the money for the treatment she needs," she added, her voice trembling slightly. The man's expression shifted. He seemed to be thinking carefully, and for a moment, there was silence between them. Then, to Lily's surprise, he knelt down beside her, looking her directly in the eyes. "I don't know what your situation is, but you don't have to go through this alone," he said softly. His words were sincere, but Lily didn't know what to make of them. Why would someone like him care about her, or her mother? She tried to smile, but the weight of her situation pressed down on her heart. "Thank you," she murmured, but she could feel the lump in her throat growing. She wanted to tell him more, to explain how desperate she felt, but she couldn't bring herself to. "I know it's hard," he said, his voice low, "but you don't have to face this by yourself. If you need help, I can be there for you." Lily was stunned. She didn't know how to respond. Her heart was racing, and a part of her wanted to reach out for his help, but another part of her felt too proud, too ashamed. She had always tried to be strong, to take care of her mother on her own. But now, standing there in front of this stranger, she wasn't so sure anymore. As the man knelt beside Lily, the words he had just spoken lingered in the air between them. The soft rustle of the wind, the distant sound of traffic. Everything seemed to fade as her thoughts swirled. She had heard empty promises before, from people who pretended to care but never followed through. But there was something about this man, his presence, his sincerity, that made her wonder if he meant what he said. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at him, unsure of what to do next. I don't know how to ask for help," she whispered, her voice barely audible, almost as if she was afraid of the vulnerability it would bring. He gave her a gentle smile, one that made her feel less like a burden and more like someone worthy of help. "You don't have to ask, Lily. You just have to accept it." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that Lily wasn't ready to bear. She had always been the one taking care of others, not the one asking for help. She glanced down at her lap, her hands gripping the arms of her chair as if to ground herself. The thought of someone else stepping in, someone she didn't know, taking control of her life. It was terrifying. But her mother was sick. She needed the help, no matter how difficult it was to accept. I don't even know your name, Lily said quietly, breaking the silence. It's David, he replied, his eyes softening as he spoke her name. And I'm here to help however I can. Lily wasn't sure what she expected him to say, but hearing his name somehow made everything feel more real. She could no longer deny the fact that a stranger, a very wealthy, very successful stranger, was standing before her, offering her help without asking for anything in return. I can't take your money, David. You don't know me. You don't know my situation, Lily protested, the words tumbling out of her mouth before she could stop them. David stood up, straightening his suit, his expression calm but firm. It's not about money, Lily. It's about giving you and your mother the chance you deserve. He took a small step back, glancing around as if searching for something. I can't just stand by and watch when I know I can help. Lily felt a lump form in her throat. She had always prided herself on being independent, on taking care of her mother despite the odds. But now, standing here with David, she realized that pride alone couldn't solve their problems. What do you want from me? Lily asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. Nothing, David said, his voice steady and reassuring. Just your trust. His words were simple, but they struck a chord deep within her. Trust. It was the one thing Lily had a hard time giving. Her life had taught her that trust was often broken, that people only helped when there was something to gain. But David's eyes told a different story, one of compassion, of genuine care. As much as she wanted to turn away, to reject the offer, a part of her knew this could be the opportunity she and her mother had been waiting for. The thought of accepting help felt like giving up in some way. But then she remembered her mother's face, the way she looked at her with love and gratitude despite everything. Lily swallowed hard, looking up at David. Okay, she said quietly. I'll accept your help, but only for my mom. She needs it more than I do. David smiled, a small, reassuring smile, as if he knew exactly what she was thinking. We'll get her the care she deserves, Lily, and you'll get the chance to live without this weight on your shoulders. We'll do this together. Lily didn't know if she could fully trust him yet, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things could change. As David offered his hand to her, she hesitated for a moment, but then, with a deep breath, she reached out and shook it. It was the first step into a future she never thought possible. Days passed since Lily reluctantly accepted David's help, and although she still felt the weight of uncertainty in her chest, there was a small flicker of hope that began to take root. David kept his word. He arranged for her mother to receive the best care available, covering all the medical bills without hesitation. It was more than Lily had ever hoped for. Her mother's condition began to stabilize, and the doctors were optimistic. Yet, despite everything David had done for them, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow in debt, a debt she couldn't repay. One morning, after another checkup, Lily sat at the edge of her mother's hospital bed, her fingers running over the smooth surface of the wooden table beside her. She had been thinking about David's offer, about how he stepped into her life without asking for anything in return. The thought made her feel small and grateful, but it also made her wonder, what was his true intention? Why would a man like him help a stranger like her? As the question swirled in her mind, she heard a soft knock on the door. She looked up to see David standing in the doorway, his usual calm demeanor present, but there was something different about him today, a quiet intensity in his eyes. Can I come in? He asked. Lily nodded, unsure of how to respond. She had become accustomed to his visits, but today felt different. David stepped into the room, his gaze shifting between Lily and her mother, who was resting peacefully. How's she doing today? He asked, his voice gentle. Better, Lily said softly. The doctors say she's improving. David smiled, but Lily could see the slight tension in his shoulders. He wasn't just here to check on her mother. There was something else on his mind. He walked over to the chair beside the bed and sat down. I've been thinking, he began, his voice low and steady, about what you said the other day. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She knew what he was referring to, when she had told him she would accept his help only for her mother's sake. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate what he had done. She did, more than he could ever know. But she had never been comfortable with the idea of someone else taking control of her life, of her future. She had always been the one who took care of others. But David's help, his generosity, had left her feeling like she owed him something she couldn't repay. I meant it, Lily said quietly, not meeting his gaze. I want to help my mom, and you've done so much already. I don't want to take more from you. David leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped together. You don't owe me anything, he said firmly, his voice unwavering. But I can't help but wonder if you're letting pride stand in the way of something you need, something both you and your mom need. Lily looked up at him, her brow furrowing. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David exhaled slowly, as if gathering his thoughts. You've been carrying the weight of everything on your shoulders for so long, Lily. And I get it. You're strong, you're independent. But that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. I'm offering you a chance for something better. For both of you. Lily's eyes welled up with emotion as she absorbed his words. It was hard to let go of the control she had clung to for so long, but part of her knew David was right. She had always believed that asking for help meant admitting weakness, but now, with everything that was happening, she saw it differently. Asking for help wasn't weakness, it was strength. It was allowing herself and her mother a chance at a better life. For the first time in days, Lily allowed herself to breathe, to consider what it might be like to live without the constant weight of fear and uncertainty. As if sensing her shift in perspective, David stood up and walked toward her, offering his hand. I'm here for you, Lily, and I won't stop until you and your mom have everything you deserve. She looked at his outstretched hand, the gesture simple, yet profound. Slowly, she reached out, her fingers brushing against his. In that moment, she felt a shift, a small but powerful moment of trust, of acceptance. She knew this was the beginning of something new, something that could change everything. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. David smiled, a reassuring, gentle smile. No need to thank me. Just let me help you. Lily nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. Days went by, and Lily's life started to shift in ways she never thought possible. The hospital visits became less frequent, her mother's health was improving, and for the first time in months, Lily allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. But even as her mother's recovery continued, something was stirring inside Lily. The bond she was forming with David felt more complicated than just gratitude. He had become her lifeline, but with that lifeline came feelings she wasn't sure how to handle. She wasn't ready for any kind of relationship, especially not with someone like him. He was rich, successful, and had offered more help than she could ever repay. She couldn't allow herself to get too close, not because she didn't like him, but because she feared what it might mean for her sense of independence. It was late one evening when David showed up at her apartment, the soft knock on the door pulling Lily from her thoughts. She had just finished cleaning up after dinner and wasn't expecting him. The door opened to reveal him standing there, a faint smile on his face. I was in the neighborhood, he said casually, though Lily could tell there was more to it than that. I thought I'd check in, see how you're both doing. She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. It's going well. Mom's getting stronger every day. We're both just adjusting to all the changes. He walked in, looking around the small but cozy apartment, his gaze lingering on the cluttered table and the worn furniture. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, and for Lily, it was enough. I'm glad to hear that, David said, his voice sincere. I've been meaning to ask, how are you holding up? I know it's been a lot to take in. Lily shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to answer. How could she explain the internal struggle she was feeling? How could she explain the conflicting emotions swirling in her chest? The gratitude for everything he'd done, mixed with the overwhelming sense of needing to maintain control over her own life. I'm fine, she said quietly. Really, I've just been adjusting. David's eyes softened, as if he could see right through her facade. Lily, you don't have to do this alone, he said, his voice steady, yet gentle. You don't have to carry everything by yourself anymore. His words hit her harder than she expected. She had always been the one to take care of others, but here he was, offering his support again, without hesitation. The thought of leaning on someone else, especially someone like him, felt overwhelming. Yet, deep down, she knew he wasn't just offering money or material help. He was offering something much more valuable. He was offering his presence, his care, and for Lily, that was something she never thought she would need. But the longer he stood there, looking at her with those steady, kind eyes, the more she realized that maybe she did need him, and maybe it was okay to need someone. She exhaled slowly, gathering her courage. I don't know how to accept all of this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It's hard for me, David. I've spent so much of my life taking care of my mom, and now it feels like I'm not sure what I am anymore. I don't want to be someone who just takes. David stepped closer, his expression soft but unwavering. You're not just taking, Lily, he said, his voice low and reassuring. You're letting someone help you, and that's not a weakness. It's strength. It takes strength to let others in, to trust them with what's most important to you. Lily swallowed hard, her emotions threatening to spill over. She had never thought of it that way. She had always believed that asking for help was a sign of weakness, but now, hearing David's words, she began to realize that there was a different kind of strength in vulnerability. But what if I'm just using you? She asked, her voice tinged with doubt. What if I'm taking advantage of your kindness? David smiled, a soft, knowing smile. You're not using me, Lily. I'm here because I want to be. And if you let me, I'll be here for you and your mom, no matter what. But you don't have to do this alone. The words settled over her like a comforting blanket. Lily took a deep breath, the knot in her chest loosening just a little. Maybe it was time to stop trying to control everything. Maybe it was time to trust, to let someone else help carry the weight. With a shaky exhale, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll let you help. David reached out and gently took her hand, a quiet promise in his gesture. In that moment, Lily knew that no matter what came next, she wouldn't be alone. And for the first time in a long while, that thought felt like a relief. As the days turned into weeks, Lily began to feel the weight of the changes that had come into her life. Her mother's health continued to improve, and with David's help, they were able to take the first steps toward a more stable future. David's presence had become a constant, not just in their lives, but in Lily's heart as well. She had never imagined that someone like him, someone so wealthy and influential, could care so deeply for her and her mother. But what surprised her even more was how much he had become a part of her world. They spent more time together, and though their relationship was still new and complicated, something deeper began to form between them. He wasn't just the man who had saved them from the brink of financial ruin. He had become her friend, her confidant, and in a way, her emotional anchor. One afternoon, as the two of them sat in the small cafe near her apartment, Lily could feel the familiar tension in her chest. She was grateful for everything David had done, but she still felt like she was treading water. She hadn't expected to feel so conflicted, but the more time she spent with him, the more she wondered where their connection was heading. As they sipped their coffee, David looked over at her, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. You've been quiet lately, he observed, his voice soft but probing. What's on your mind? Lily hesitated, looking down at her cup before meeting his gaze. I don't know, she said, her voice uncertain. I don't know how to do this. How to be around you like this. It feels like I'm letting go of everything I've worked so hard for. David's expression softened, and he leaned forward slightly. You don't have to give up who you are, Lily. You're still strong, independent, and capable. You just don't have to do everything alone anymore. You've let me help you, and that's okay. His words struck her harder than she expected. She hadn't realized how much she had internalized the need to always be the strong one, to always be the one who took care of things. To ask for help felt like a betrayal of her own identity. But David's words gave her a sense of clarity she hadn't felt before. She wasn't losing herself by letting someone in. She was simply learning that it was okay to share the load. She took a deep breath, allowing herself to truly feel the weight of the moment. I guess I've been afraid, she admitted. Afraid of what it means to depend on someone else. To trust them with everything. With my mom's life, with my own. David smiled gently, his eyes warm and understanding. It's normal to be afraid, he said, his voice calm. But trust isn't about giving up control. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone who genuinely cares. It's about knowing that you don't have to carry everything on your own. Lily nodded slowly, processing his words. She realized that trust wasn't just about relying on someone. It was about accepting the fact that she didn't have to face the world alone, that she didn't have to be afraid of asking for help or opening her heart. And as she looked at David, she felt a new sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was moving forward, not weighed down by her fears, but carried by the strength of the people who cared for her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "For everything. For being here, for helping me understand." David reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "I'm here because I want to be. And I always will be, Lily." It was then that Lily realized that this was more than just gratitude. It was trust. And trust was something she had learned to give, not just to others, but to herself. And with that trust came the understanding that she didn't have to face everything alone. As they sat there, hands clasped together, Lily felt a small but significant shift within her. She was no longer burdened by the weight of isolation, the pressure to do everything on her own. She had let someone in. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like everything was going to be okay. It had been a few weeks since Lily had taken that first step toward accepting help, and slowly, she began to adjust to this new chapter in her life. David's support had been a steady presence, and as her mother's health continued to improve, Lily's own feelings were shifting. She found herself opening up more, not just to David but to the world around her. She was no longer carrying the weight of her fears alone. Yet, despite the progress, there was still a part of her that hesitated. The part that feared losing herself in this newfound connection, that feared becoming dependent on someone else. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that what she had with David wasn't dependence. It was partnership. It was trust. One evening, as they sat together at a small dinner table, David casually mentioned a charity event he was hosting. It was for a cause he deeply cared about, one that helped families in need, and he wanted Lily to attend as his guest. At first, Lily was hesitant. The idea of attending such an event felt overwhelming. She had never been to something so lavish, and the thought of being surrounded by people in the upper echelons of society made her uncomfortable. But as David explained the purpose of the event, Lily realized it wasn't about the glamour or the wealth. It was about making a difference. And if she was going to fully embrace this new life, she had to stop running from the parts of it that scared her. "I know it's a big step," David said, noticing her hesitation. "But I think it could be a good opportunity for you to see how much you've already overcome. You're a part of this world now, Lily, and you deserve to be here." His words struck a chord with her. She had spent so long in the shadows, taking care of her mom and pushing her own needs aside, that she had forgotten what it was like to be seen for who she was, to feel worthy. That night, Lily made a decision. She agreed to attend the event, not for David, but for herself. The night of the charity event arrived, and Lily stood in front of her mirror, taking in the reflection before her. The dress she wore was simple but elegant, something David had helped her pick out. She had never imagined herself in such a gown, never imagined walking into a room full of strangers who would look at her not for her circumstances, but for who she was. As she arrived at the venue with David, she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The event was held in a grand ballroom, the atmosphere warm and inviting, with soft lighting and the gentle hum of conversation filling the air. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. For a moment, she felt out of place, unsure of how to navigate this new world. But David's reassuring presence beside her made all the difference. He introduced her to people with ease, made her feel included, and as the night went on, Lily began to see this world through a different lens. She wasn't just the girl who needed help anymore. She was someone who had been given the chance to start over, to move forward. As the evening came to a close, David led Lily outside, where the night air was crisp and cool. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice gentle, but there was a hint of pride in it. Lily looked at him, her eyes wide with new understanding. "I feel like I belong," she said quietly. "Like I'm more than my past." David smiled, his eyes soft with warmth. "You always have belonged, Lily. You just needed to see it for yourself." As they stood there, under the starry sky, Lily realized that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She just needed to trust in herself, in the people who cared for her, and in the possibilities that lay ahead. The weeks that followed the charity event were filled with new challenges, but also new triumphs. Lily's life had changed in ways she couldn't have imagined, and as her mother's health continued to improve, so did Lily's own sense of self. She had begun to let go of the past, of the weight she had carried alone for so long, and now she was learning to embrace the future with open arms. But despite the progress, a sense of unease lingered. Lily had come to realize that while she was slowly letting herself trust David, she still hadn't fully let herself trust what they were building together. The emotions she felt for him were undeniable, but she was scared of what it might mean, scared of getting hurt, scared of letting go of the independence she had always fought for. It was one evening, as they sat together in the park, that Lily finally gave voice to the doubts that had been swirling in her mind. The air was cool, the sky a soft shade of purple as the sun set behind the trees. David had his arm resting on the back of the bench, his usual relaxed demeanor radiating warmth and calm. Lily, on the other hand, was fidgeting nervously with the edge of her jacket, her mind racing. David, she started, her voice a little shaky. I've been thinking a lot, and I don't know if I'm ready for this. For us. I don't know if I can let myself go that far, let someone in like that. David turned his head to look at her, his expression soft but attentive. What do you mean? He asked gently. Lily swallowed, gathering her thoughts. I don't know if I can trust what this is, she continued. You've done so much for me and my mom. You've given us more than we ever thought possible. But I don't want to just depend on you, on your generosity. I don't want to be someone who takes all the time. I've spent my whole life being the one who gives, the one who holds it all together. And now I'm not sure who I am if I let myself need someone else. David was silent for a moment, his gaze steady on her, as if considering her words carefully. Then, he spoke softly but firmly. Lily, needing someone isn't the same as being dependent. Trust isn't about giving up your strength. It's about realizing that you don't have to face the world alone. His words hit her hard, and for a moment, Lily couldn't speak. She had been so afraid of losing herself in someone else, of relying too much on someone who might not always be there. But David's presence, his unwavering support, wasn't something she had to fear. It was something she could lean into, something that could make her stronger, not weaker. But I don't want to be weak, she whispered. David smiled gently, reaching over to take her hand in his. You're not weak, Lily. You're strong in ways you don't even realize. And being strong doesn't mean you have to carry everything on your own. It means knowing when to let someone else in, when to share the burden. Lily's heart fluttered as she felt the sincerity in his touch. She had spent so many years convinced that asking for help made her weak, that needing someone else made her less than she wanted to be. But David was showing her a different kind of strength, the strength that came from connection, from vulnerability, from trusting someone who cared for her without asking anything in return. I'm scared, Lily said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Scared that if I open up, I'll lose myself. Scared that I'll end up depending on you too much. And then what happens when you're not there? David squeezed her hand gently, his eyes full of understanding. I won't let you fall, Lily. And even if you do need me, that's okay. We're in this together. The words settled over her like a warm embrace, and for the first time in a long time, Lily felt like she wasn't carrying everything on her own. She wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could trust in this, in him. With a deep breath, Lily let go of the fear that had been holding her back. She wasn't giving up her independence by accepting David's help. She was allowing herself to be part of something bigger than her fear, part of something real. Okay, she whispered, her voice filled with a new sense of clarity. Okay, I'll trust you. And I'll trust myself. David smiled, his eyes warm with pride. You don't have to be perfect, Lily. You just have to be you. And in that moment, Lily realized that maybe being herself was all she needed to be. As the days went by, Lily found herself embracing the life she had once feared. She had learned to let go of the walls she had built around herself, and in doing so, she allowed herself to experience a happiness she hadn't thought possible. With David by her side, she felt more secure than she ever had before. Yet, despite the progress, something unexpected happened, an invitation that would change everything. It came in the form of a letter, embossed with elegant script and an official seal. The envelope was addressed to both Lily and her mother, a formal invitation to a gala hosted by David's company. It was a high-profile event, one that promised to bring together some of the most influential people in the city. Lily wasn't sure what to make of it. The last thing she expected was to be invited into such a world. But David's words echoed in her mind. You belong here, Lily. She could feel the nervous excitement building inside her. The gala was a big step. It wasn't just about attending an event, it was about stepping fully into this new life, this new world she was now a part of. It was about trusting herself, about embracing who she had become. When the night arrived, Lily found herself standing in front of a full-length mirror, her heart pounding. The dress she wore was a gift from David, a stunning, deep blue gown that shimmered under the soft light. Her hair was styled simply but elegantly, and her makeup was subtle yet polished. As she stood there, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The girl who had once hidden behind walls of fear and self-doubt was now about to walk into a room full of strangers, not as someone in need, but as someone worthy of being there. David arrived at her door just before they left, dressed in a sharp tuxedo that only amplified the presence he carried. His eyes softened when he saw her, and for a moment, there was a quiet recognition between them, a recognition of the journey they had both taken. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice low and sincere. Lily smiled, the nerves that had been building dissipating in that moment. "Thank you. I think I'm ready." They arrived at the gala venue, a grand ballroom with towering columns and crystal chandeliers that sparkled like stars in the night sky. The room was filled with the buzz of conversation, the clink of glasses, and the soft hum of a live orchestra in the background. For a moment, Lily felt overwhelmed. She was out of her element, surrounded by people who seemed so different from her. But then David's hand gently touched her back, guiding her through the crowd. He introduced her to people with ease, speaking with a warmth that put her at ease as well. As the evening went on, Lily began to feel more comfortable. The anxiety that had gripped her at first slowly melted away. She found herself laughing, talking with people who were kind and genuine. No one treated her as an outsider. They saw her as someone worthy of being there, just as David had always seen her. But it was during the evening's main event that something unexpected happened. As David introduced her to a well-dressed woman, the woman's eyes lit up as if she had just seen a long-lost friend. "Wait," the woman said, her voice full of surprise. "Are you Lily? The Lily from the charity event?" Lily blinked, unsure what she meant. "Yes, I am," she replied hesitantly. The woman smiled broadly, her eyes filled with admiration. "I've heard so much about you. David has been talking about you nonstop since the event. He's so proud of you, and I can see why. You have such a strong presence." Lily felt a wave of emotion hit her. It wasn't just that David had been proud of her. It was that he had been talking about her, sharing her journey with others. It made her feel seen, appreciated in a way she never had before. In that moment, she realized that she had come a long way. She wasn't just someone being helped anymore. She was someone who had earned her place, someone who had fought through her struggles and emerged stronger for it. The night ended with laughter, music, and a sense of belonging Lily hadn't known she could feel. As she left the ballroom with David, she looked up at him, a quiet understanding passing between them. She wasn't the same person who had first met him, scared, uncertain, and hesitant. She had found a new sense of strength in herself, one that was built on trust, love, and the belief that she deserved to be happy. "Thank you, David," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." David smiled, his eyes warm with affection. "You don't have to thank me, Lily. This is all you. You've earned every moment of it." As they walked into the cool night, Lily realized that this was just the beginning. Her future was wide open, and for the first time, she felt ready to embrace it fully. The weeks following the gala were filled with quiet changes that rippled through Lily's life. As she settled into this new version of herself, someone who embraced the support and care of those around her, she found herself growing in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her relationship with David deepened, no longer just about gratitude, but about mutual respect, trust, and understanding. He had not only helped her rebuild her life, but had shown her the power of vulnerability, of letting go of her fears, and allowing herself to receive love. It was a Saturday afternoon when David took her to a small, peaceful park near his home. The sun was shining brightly, and the air had a crispness to it that promised the arrival of fall. They had been talking about everything and nothing all afternoon, laughing over small things and savoring the quiet moments. As they walked along the path, David stopped and turned to face her, his expression soft but serious. "Lily," he said, his voice steady, "I know we've been through a lot together, and I want to make sure you know how important you are to me." Lily looked up at him, her heart beating a little faster. She had no idea where this conversation might go, but there was something in his eyes that told her this moment was different. "I can't imagine my life without you," David continued, his gaze never leaving hers. "And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You and your mom have become my family, and I want to make that official." Lily's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. She had always been afraid of depending on others, afraid of losing herself in someone else's world. But with David, it felt different. It felt like home. She looked down at the ground for a moment, her thoughts racing. Was she ready for this? For a future with him? For a life where she could share her dreams, her hopes, and even her fears with someone who had proven time and time again that he would always be there? She took a deep breath and looked back at David, her eyes filled with emotion. "I'm ready," she said softly, her voice steady, yet full of everything she had been holding back. "I'm ready to be with you, to build a future together. I trust you, and I love you." The words came easier than she expected. They weren't just words. They were the culmination of everything she had learned in the time they had spent together. David's face lit up with a smile that made her heart swell. "I love you too, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I can't wait to spend every day with you." Without another word, David dropped to one knee, pulling out a small, simple ring. "Will you marry me, Lily? Will you be my forever?" Tears filled Lily's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak at first. She had come so far, and now she was standing on the brink of a new life, one that she had never imagined possible. But here she was, ready to take the step, ready to open her heart fully to the man who had changed everything. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes, I will marry you." David stood up, pulling her into his arms, holding her tight as the world around them seemed to disappear. In that moment, Lily realized that this was it. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, hope, and a future she had never dared to dream of. Together, they would face whatever came next, not as two separate people, but as partners, as a family. And for the first time in a long while, Lily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She wasn't alone anymore. And with David by her side, she knew she never would be again. In this heartfelt story, we follow the journey of a young woman who learns to trust again and accept help from an unlikely source. As her life takes a dramatic turn, we see her growing closer to a wealthy businessman who changes everything for her and her mother. This is one of those incredible millionaire stories where love, trust, and vulnerability create the foundation for an unexpected but beautiful relationship. It's not just about money. It's about how genuine connection and support can transform lives. If you enjoy millionaire stories that focus on the emotional journey of real people, this one will capture your heart. The story continues to unfold as the young woman navigates her fears of depending on others and learns to embrace the new life that awaits her. Just like many of the best millionaire stories, this one shows how generosity and trust can build the most unexpected and profound connections. Whether it's through simple acts of kindness or grand gestures, these millionaire stories remind us that sometimes all it takes is one person to change everything. Watch as she learns to accept love and help, leading to a life she never imagined, in this touching tale of transformation.